Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
We will win this together.
Hey guys, so I figured I would do a little guide for the reduced projectile speed Spectral Helix build. I posted a video like a week ago and it got a lot of attention, so I guess this is kind of forgotten tech since it was only previously available in Calandra League, but now it's possible again thanks to reflecting mists. And first off, I will say this build is kinda clunky and a bit limited in its strengths, but it is pretty cool, and maybe you want to play around with this concept yourself, so I'm just gonna go over sort of the basic build concept, and then I'll go more specifically into my character, the way I built it. So yeah, the basic concept of the build is stacking reduced projectile speed, which you can get a lot of on a focused amulet with an inverted mod from the Reflecting Mist. Basically, you get this veiled mod that gives increased projectile speed, and then you invert it with the Reflecting Mist, and you can get really a lot of reduced projectile speed. And there's also one other source of reduced projectile speed, and that is on the tree right here. You can get 10% here and 10% here. So that's 20% reduced on the tree as well. And then you have a multiplicative source, which is less projectile speed, which you can get 30% less projectile speed on this support gem here, slower projectiles, and then also on this mastery if you need it. And yeah, this is multiplicative and it applies after the reduced, so it's a bit less impactful. But yeah, so you want to get down to 92 to 95% reduced projectile speed, because Helix can hit every 0.3 seconds. So but it also needs to travel a minimum distance during that time, which it doesn't if you go to 96 or slower, at least according to testing done back in Calandra League. And obviously you can play with faster speed, but then you don't get as many hits per attack. And by the way, for mapping, what you do is just replace the focused amulet. I like Defiance of Destiny for mapping, and then you have a more comfortable speed on the Helix for clearing. But yeah, back to the projectile speed. Basically, it means the minimum amount of reduced speed you want on the focused amulet is 66%. So then you have 66% with the 20% reduced from the tree. That puts you at 86% percent reduced, or basically like 14% projectile speed. And then you have the 45% multiplier from slower projectile and the mastery. And that puts you at 7.7 or 92.3% reduced, which is just rounded down in game probably. So yeah, that puts you just within the range of 92% to get the most amount of hits per cast of Helix without losing any damage. So yeah, you can check your speed here under miscellaneous. We'll see I have 92%, but this right here does not include from the gem. So keep that in mind. So I think I'm actually at, yeah, just 95%. Like right now, I'm not using the mastery because I'm comfortably within that range. So if you want to see what your projectile speed is, including the gem, you can look in POB. Or by the way, if you get too much reduced speed on your amulet, you can balance that out by getting just increased projectile speed. But yeah, check on the character sheet or in POB if you want to make sure you're within the range. But yeah, that's the basic concept of the build and like the mechanics, if you want to play around with it yourself. So now I'll just go over how I built my specific character. So I decided to go Slayer with Rakiata's Dance. In the original video I was a Deadeye, but I think Slayer is just better, especially for like boss rushing or whatever. Like getting the 20% cull is really nice, and then Masterful Form is really nice defensively, and Overwhelm is really good for Rakiatas because it doesn't have high base crit. And yeah, you're Reflect Immune as well, you can run any map, although again this build isn't very comfortable for mapping, so but you are Reflect Immune both from elemental and physical. So yeah, that's why I decided to go Slayer. But yeah, I'm gonna go over the gear and the gems, and then a little bit about the passive tree. So yeah, starting out with the gems, I'm using Spectral Helix with slower proj, awakened elemental damage with attacks, Ice Bite, Hypothermia, and Inspiration. Inspiration is nice to just get the mana down a little bit, because you want to be able to spam the attack. Now these are going to be here forever. You also have non-channeling here and some source on the tree here for reduced cost. But yeah, that's the main link. And then for auras, I'm using Flesh and Stone. You have to get really close to the enemies as this build. So Flesh and Stone is a really good defensive option because you get the maximum reduced amount damage taken here in Sandstance, because you're super melee. And then I have Anger for just a flat fire damage, and then Herald of Ice. Herald of Ice is mostly for like clearing. It is really nice to have during mapping, but it's not that much damage. And then I have an Enlighten with that. Then I have Precision with Arrogance to cap my accuracy. And that's it for the auras. I'm using Assassin's Mark as my curse on a Mark on hit setup. I have life tap, just because, I am using a tincture, so you don't want to run out of mana too much, I guess. So I like to life tap that stuff, but it's probably not needed. Then I have Frostblink, just as an instant travel skill, and Leap Slam with faster attacks as my main movement skill. And then I have a cast when damage taken setup here with, I'm using Immortal Call. I don't have a ton of armor, but I might, I have so little armor, so I don't think it's worth it to use Molten Shell, so that's why I'm just going with Immortal Call with more duration. And then I have a tornado here as well. I don't want to press the tornado myself, so I just put it here. But yeah, it adds a little bit of damage. And then I also have life tap on that. And then I just have a portal gem. I just there's not a lot of like socket pressure on this build, so I'm not entirely sure if I could use something better. Obviously, this is not needed at all. So maybe I can optimize the gem setup a little bit. But for now, this is what I'm running for the sockets. And for the gear, like I said, I'm using Rakiata's Dance here. It's just a really nice, cheap option that gives you a lot of damage. I think going with a claw and a shield, you could probably get a more well-rounded setup going with that. If you wanted to do other content, like maybe Simulacrums is pretty good for this build. That's what people used it for in Calandra League, mostly, I think. So yeah, and there you probably do want the block from having a shield. So, but yeah, I'm using Rakiatas as a cheap and a high damage option, and it pairs pretty well with Abhorrent Interrogation, which makes it so you can't penetrate or ignore elemental resistances, and obviously you don't want to reduce them because Rakiatas inverts, so that's a pretty good pairing. You can get the +1 Frenzy Charge really cheap as well. Of course, we are kind of a Frenzy Charge stacking build because of Masterful Form. So that's that combo. And then I'm running Olesia's Delight. You can definitely run Arn's Anguish. It is more damage, but then you kind of have to worry about getting your endurance charges. And getting the Frenzy Charges is really free from just the Sword Mastery. And of course, well, you're getting Affliction Charges instead, which makes your shock and your chill, you get more effect from your shock and chill, which is pretty nice. But yeah, you might want to look into using Arn's Anguish, but then you have to use like Enduring Cry maybe here, or you can get the Implicit from the chest. I think it's Searing Exarch Implicit, that you gain one every 15 seconds or so. But then you might need the Duration Master here. But if you get a tier 1, it's fine. Yeah, but it's kind of slow. If you're doing like Exarch runs, you are ramping for a bit anyways if you're preloading, or any situation when you're preloading. But I do a lot of like just invitations, like writhing invitations or whatever, where I just run in and kill them. and there you don't really want to wait for that, for all those charges to stack up. So yeah, using Arn's Anguish is a good option as well, but I'm using Olesias. And then of course I'm using Ralikesh to have to count as having max charges all the time, and also enabling having both the charges from Olesias or Arn while still having the original charges. And then I'm running the Taming, since I mean we have all three elemental ailments anyway, so it's a lot of damage. And then I'm just running a rare ring and a rare helm and a rare chest. I am spell suppression capped, so you want to make sure you get that. Fist damage reduction is nice on the chest. I have a little bit too much strength and int because I got more than I anticipated from my lethal pride. I really just wanted some double damage and some fire resist, but I ended up getting a bunch of extra strength as well from this here, like 40% or 40 extra strength. So yeah, it's my build isn't super optimized. Like you can use your own rares pretty comfortably. And then for the focused amulet, of course, I bought this for 10 divines like a week ago. I think they've gone up in price by a bit. I just wanted one that didn't have any downsides, so where I could get the reduced projectile speed but not have any downsides. So I ended up with this. It's you can craft one yourself with reflecting mists, but I just bought someone else's like failed experiment, I guess. The reduced cast speed doesn't matter. Mana again doesn't really matter. I mean, well, yeah, I don't think it's, since mana burn is percentage based anyways, I don't think it matters a lot. But yeah, you just, I mean, you can get a really sick focused amulet with like crit multi and life and stuff like that, but yeah, if you can get the projectile speed and not have any downsides, that's good enough. And then for my flasks, I'm running just a life flask, silver flask, granite flask, a bottled faith, and a prismatic tincture here. I have increased melee weapon attack speed. So this is a melee weapon. Of course, it's not a melee skill, but it's still a melee weapon, so it counts. And yeah, I think attack speed, or you can crit multi is good as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gear. For the jewels, again, I'm using Lethal Pride. Here I have the Light of Meaning. You can get, like, I think I'm over crit capped with Bottled Faith up, but you don't always have that up, so yeah, you can get, if you wanted to fix your Chaos Res, getting a Light of Meaning with the Chaos Res would be pretty good. And then lastly, I have Watcher's Eye here, just a cheap bad one. You should get the one with Anger instead. It just has a better roll of crit multi. But yeah, I got away with doing this build very cheaply. Like, I mean, this was 10 divines and the rest of the gear is like, I don't know, another 10, 15 divines maybe. It was a pretty cheap setup for me at least. And then I have a cluster jewel here. This is where I get Rage from Blood Scent. And then Martial Prowess is a good one. Then I have just run through here, so I don't want to take it. It's just to get these more efficiently. And then I have a medium here with Eye to Eye and Repeater, which is really good. If I get to level 100, I'll probably just get another medium. Maybe remove this and then be level 100, and that's another 4 points. But yeah, this is what the tree is looking like. Using Point Blank, it's kind of bad for the pre-stacking, but it's good for your when you're actually standing close to the monster. So I think it's a net positive for, yeah, most of the time. And this is what I'm getting. Leech. Not too much to say, I guess. This works since we have a little bit of fist damage. You get percent chance to bleed from these two nodes, and then the monster will be bleeding, so you get the effect of this on a single target most of the time at least. This is where I'm getting the frenzy charges. I'm not sure. I like having the tincture stuff, just as kind of quality of life, but I guess you could get rid of that. Then yeah, you're just getting all the 3 frenzy charges, and yeah, not too much to say. And of course, I already went over the ascendancy points. I leveled this character as Frostblades for a long time. You can level with Spectral Helix, of course, but I think Frostblades feels a little bit better. So that's what I went with. I leveled up to like 96 or something with just Frostblades. Because, yeah, this build, even when you remove the Focused Amulet, the clear is still kind of mid. So for the leveling process, I didn't want to deal with it. But yeah, you can run like Guardian maps and stuff like that pretty comfortably, just removing the Focused Amulet. And then, of course, you can focus on like certain Uber bosses that allows you to pre-stack. Yeah. I think if you build the... I haven't tried all Uber bosses, but I think you could do them all if you play well. But certain ones like Exarch are easiest, of course, because you can do the pre-stack and you can just blast them down. But yeah, I don't want to go on for too long about this, so thanks for watching, guys. Getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers now, since the last video did really well. So if you want to hit subscribe, that'll be really cool, and yeah, thanks for watching.